What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here. Today we're gonna do a blue wave combo video. Now this is gonna be with the support that we have in V series right now. So it doesn't include the stuff from Team Dragon's Vanity. So that's still kind of waiting, and we just saw the episode, so we're not even sure what the skills entirely are. But because we're expecting blue waves, I got really excited, and so I decided to go back to blue waves, add some of the V series stuff, and let's see what we can do in premium now. And I've discovered some really good combos that I thought I'd share. And honestly, they synergize really well too. So let's get right into it. All right, so the first combo I'm going to show off is the early game. And so we have availability to a different play that we before couldn't have. And so two V-Series cards that I'm going to use right now is Coral Assault and Calm Assault. And so obviously Coral Assault actually will filter himself out if there was a fourth battle happening. In this case, there will be. Which helps because you gotta actually dig deeper into your deck to get more combo pieces for later on, so that's valuable. In this example, we're not gonna get the 15k power up, so just keep that in mind. And then with Calm Assault, if you guys don't know, he's the one that Soul Blast 1. If it's the third or the fourth wave, the attacking unit gets plus 5k for the battle. So it really helps with giving power to the units to actually push through another threshold, essentially. And so in this case, if you have a blue wave Vanguard, it could be Galeos, it could be some other blue wave unit, that's great too. But the sequence goes, Coral Assault, you can attack a rear guard, and then if they have another rear guard, you can attack it as well. Any drive triggers that have it triggers, you stack them on Fuevos, of course. And then on the third battle, you can Counter Blast, it becomes an 11k, and then of course you got Calm Assault to Soul Blast 1 to get plus 5 to the attacking rear guard. So in this case, it's actually 11 plus 5, so it's a 16k attacker, which is pretty good numbers. So if for whatever reason, if they're on a Vanguard that's 6k, even if they got a trigger from these battles, you can still hit. And then of course, it can demand more guard power, essentially. And then it'll restance, and then go for the fourth battle, but this time, you have Calm Assault boosted, and then do the skill once more, so Soul Blast another card, boom. So you get an additional 8k boost from that turn, so then it becomes 24. So 24 is a really good number that early on. So that way you can get that early damage and that early aggression. And then of course at the end of the turn, since you got 4 battles, swoops in, draw a card, filter. And one thing I will note, in the past before when you did 4 or 5 attacks, you would have 2 rearguards left over. But because Coral Assault swoops in and gets out of the way and you get advantage back, it's really nice. So then all they really do is they can try to focus on killing this Fuevos. And you can protect it or let it die. And then they can choose to attack the Vanguard to give you a Counter Blast, or honestly just keep protecting it and just keep going ham with it. So that's really nice. So another early game play you could do is something very basic with the Calm Assault. So if you really don't have access to another like Fuevos or a blue wave unit to make Fuevos count, you could just rely on the original Tidal Assault. So you could attack a rearguard and give any triggers to the Tidal Assault. So that way when he attacks Vanguard, it'll restand -5. And then you can boost, and then also just Soul Blast to essentially just negate his -5k weakness, essentially. And you could actually hit about 17k for the third wave, essentially. So it's a good way to get a solid third attack in as well. And on your grade 3 turn, if you do go first as a grade 3 ride, you do have the option to actually use Fuevos still, because your blue wave, your Vanguard's a blue wave if you choose to ride whether Valeos or Anger Boil. In this example, I'm using Anger Boil. And so really the sequence would be first attack, second attack. You have access to Twin Drive, put triggers on the Fuevos, Fuevos skill to Counter Blast, restand, and then of course you have the Calm Assault to help out with the numbers as well. So it's a pretty solid turn, making that vanilla Anger Boil or that Valeos turn not so vanilla. With winning first stride, I would suggest winning first stride still, so that way you're actually farther ahead in the game, 8-ball, essentially. And honestly, if you go into this, like the first grade 3 right turn, have a heal, so that way you can actually G-guard, and then that way when you actually come back to your turn, you can go into Tetra Boil and really do a powerhouse turn. Alright, let's go into the first strides, basically. So one of the things you can do, if you have a blue wave heart, then Fuevos is live regardless of what stride you're on. So in this case, we'll do Alexandros. What I like about Fuevos is that because it triggers the third battle, you can do this sequence of attack with very low commitment from hand. And so really you only need that one rearguard. And so essentially you can attack their rearguard for 9k. And then if you have the Vanguard, you can do any drive checks on it, and then at the end of the battle, of course, restand the Fuevos, give it a +5, and then on the third wave, do the skill, give it +2. So now it's a 16k, and if you got triggers that's bigger, it'll restand, and then once again, attack. So it's a very low commitment play in the terms of hand advantage and resources, and you can use 2 counterblasts to get 4 attacks that way, essentially. And so if you want to make this a little bit better, let's just introduce another unit. So if you want to have more oomph to this turn and still commit not as much, I highly recommend cards like Penguin and of course Calm Assault. Ideally in this scenario you want Penguin over the Calm Assault because Calm Assault will consume 2 Soul Blasts while the Penguin won't consume any resources at all. So in fact you could reach actually countercharge too in the 4th wave. So let's play it out with the Penguin. And so for the first battle, well, before you go into your battle phase, you would actually do this in the main phase where you rest it +5 to the Fuevos. So Fuevos is 14k now. So it could actually attack the Vanguard on the first wave during your battle phase, and you can actually proc a 5k shield, or either take it, or you can attack at a rear guard. And then again, once more, do the Vanguard attack. And at the end of the battle, this time, restand a Fuevos and the Penguin. So if this is a little unconventional because most of the time you have 2 rear guards that attack first, and then you just restand those rear guards to get more attacks. But you could also restand boosters, basically cards in the back row. So you can restand both of them, and they get additional +5k because it's the first stride, so you could only flip 1 card, so +5k each. And then Fuevos, again, 3rd wave, do its skill. Now remember that you gave it +5 from the Penguin and +5 from the Alexandros. It's actually a 21k beater. And if you had triggers, it's even bigger. And now, if you really want, you can either boost with the Penguin on the 3rd or the 4th. If you did it on the 3rd, then on the 4th battle, you attack with Fuevos, then you can countercharge. So if you want that flexibility in case they were gonna like remove it with some card removal, or you just needed the counterblast for maybe next turn. But if you use Alexandros, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna flip Gophilia, and Gophilia can actually help you with the countercharge still in that respect. And still do like a Tetraboil turn very solid as well. So those are things to consider. Otherwise, you can just boost on the 4th battle, and since he got the power up as well, he's going to be a 13k booster, and if Fuevos is 21, then that will be 34k, which is actually a really good column number. You're past that 33k mark, essentially. So it hits good numbers in that respect. Another first stride option is actually Tetraboil on Anger Boil. For those that don't know, Anger Boil's stride skill is actually not GB restricted. So the only GB restriction is the restanding of the Tetra stride, actually. So you can actually first stride this and get the heart skill, essentially. So that way, when you attack the 2nd wave, you can restand 2 units, right? And so one of the benefits for this reason is because you can conserve counterblasts, or if you don't have any counterblasts, this is one way to do it. Before Alexandros even existed, this is one of the many ways that I actually did my first stride turn beforehand. But now with Alexandros in the picture that came about a year ago, you can do the same thing, just a little bit bigger. Now, one thing that I will note with Anger Boil, it gives power up as well. So the Vanguard actually gets +3, and so since you're 11k base plus the 15 makes it 26k, the +3 actually matters now because you become 29k. So if you were just 26 and you had Twin Drive because of Tetraboil, people can drop 2 15k shields and it'd basically be a no pass. So they drop 2 cards that are not a PG or a heal trigger, that G-Guard or anything like that, and it blocks your Vanguard attack, which kind of sucks, you know. But because you got the +3, you could actually overcome that, and they have to drop more shield in that respect. At that point, they would have to drop a heal or a G-Guard at that point, or PG. So you can get more than 2 cards value-wise, essentially. Essentially, you just want to get a G-Guardian or a PG out of the way. And so that way in the first battle, before you even go to your battle phase, make sure you use Penguin's skill to beef it up. So again, he'll be attacking for the 14k. And then on the 2nd wave, because you attack, now remember, you don't flip or anything because it's vanilla, but the Anger Boil goes off. So restand and actually give it +3 to both units. And then this is regular triple drive, so you can just stack all the triggers on the Fuevos. And, oh, let me repeat that. You actually have at least 1 counterblast, at least with the Fuevos example. My bad. But you do the Fuevos, do the counterblast to restand. Like I said, he's only +3, but since he's at the +5 as well, he's 16 plus the 3, so it's 19. So it's a 19k attack on the 3rd wave, or any attack that he's not boosted. And then, of course, you would do the 4th battle boosted. He's only 3k powered up as well, so he's 11k. So 11 plus the 19 makes 30k. So it passes the 28k mark, which is good. Ideally, we want past the 33k mark. But like I said, if you're short on counterblast, like if you only have 1 counterblast, then you can do this with Fables. If you don't have any counterblast, then you can just replace the Fables with a Tidal Assault, right? It's just a little weaker because Fables is, you know, by himself he's 11-11, and then Tidal by himself he's 9-4. So it's a little weaker, but you get power-ups to kind of like get around that. But obviously, you have options if you don't have any counterblast because you use them in the early game or the damage denial for whatever reason. So I wanted to show this off because this is still an option. And yes, when you end your turn and then you have another Tetra Boil to go into, you will have basically a dead Tetra Boil in the G zone. But that's okay because we have Flood Hazard now too. So we have options. It's okay. But yeah, I wanted to show that off. So the other option is a Flood Hazard turn, but I'm not going to cover a first stride turn, but you can do a first stride Flood Hazard turn to do the reset and everything. It just involves a little more commitment. So let's go into like the GB2 and after turns. So let's say you're in GB2 turn right now. And again, you could do a very low commitment play with Tetra Boil, Anger Boil, essentially with the Fuevos, as long as you have 2 counterblasts open. And so basically the first attack could be the Fuevos. Then you do the skill where you do Twin Drive, and then flip a card, of course, and do the counterblast. And then do the Twin Drive, any triggers from that, put it on Fuevos. And of course, restand from the Anger Boil skill. And then when it attacks for the 3rd wave, do the counterblast, get the plus 11 and the plus 3. So it's 14k? Yeah, 14k. And then, of course, if you got any triggers, it's bigger than that. But what's kind of cool is that it's 14k, so it's going to hit if you didn't get a trigger, and if they didn't get a trigger. And then you'll get the 4th attack that way as well. And then at the end of the battle, you discard the card and restand Tetra Boil. And so you get a 2nd Vanguard attack, and you get 5 attacks in total, 2 of them being a Vanguard, and you get 4 drive checks in the turn. So you're likely to see more triggers at that point too. So which is good. And again, this is like a very minimal commitment turn with a restanding Vanguard, but we can make it even more beefier. I shouldn't leave the counterblast like that, just because, you know, back and forth. So let's say we have Penguin, right? You essentially do the same thing what I mentioned in the first stride where you restand, you get your 4 battles that way. But like in the past before, I want another rearguard on this side where the 2nd Vanguard attack can actually put the drive check triggers onto it. And so it could actually benefit because most of the time the 2nd Vanguard attack actually gets PG'd or something like that. And so if you have a beater, let me put it out. There we go. There's 2 beaters that you have options available to you. And so one of them is Coral Assault, obviously. The one thing with Coral Assault, you would need a booster. So if you have like a Calm Assault behind it, that meets that requirement of the 4 rested units. But if you want to do a single card, then you can just do Riptide. Riptide's a really good card that is just a big beater. And honestly, it synergizes for this very reason where you can rely on it being a 32k beater on its own. And if you have a trigger, it just goes bonkers, essentially. And so, like I said, you do the same thing where you main phase Restless +5. And then if you want, you can attack the Vanguard, do the skill again. There we go. Twin Drive triggers on here, restand, of course. Then Fuego's 3rd wave. Oh yeah, this stands too. And then 4th wave, boosted, make a big number. And then finally, discard, restand, do another attack. And guess what? Your triggers can go on here, and then Riptide can attack afterwards. So it's a more stronger turn, and honestly, you just need 3 rearguards, which is really good. So that way you don't have a full board or have to be committing too much. You just need basically the right units to work with. And there's still more things you can do. What I like to do with Calm Assault, essentially, wow, that's a bad glare. But anyway, I'll put them over here. Calm Assault doesn't have to be behind the unit to give the power up. It can be anywhere in the field. So when Fuevos attacks on the 3rd wave, you can Soul Blast to give it an additional 5k, and you reach a good threshold. So let's just kind of like count that up. With the Penguin, it gives it a 5k. With this, it gives it another 5k. And it's an 11k attacker by itself, so it becomes 21k base. And then when you restand it with the Anger Boil, it's an additional +3. So it becomes a 24K hitter on the third wave without being boosted. Which, you know, if they got a trigger, you're going to hit it, which is good. And then, of course, on the fourth way, it just becomes another 5K threshold to hit farther in, too. So it adds more aggression. And then, of course, you can use this as a booster for the other column. And, boy, that glare is nasty. And honestly, this would come up more if you ended up using Coral Assault, which would see the 4 rested units because it's being boosted, and you have a plus 15 power up, so 24 plus the 8. That's 32K column, so which is really good against Excel and Protect clans as well. So, yeah. In Blue Wave before, I actually played a card called Orfeo. It's a G-era card, so essentially when it boosts at the end of the battle, you can Counterblast, Soul Blast 1, -5 to boost the unit and actually restand it. So it makes anything a Tidal Assault. And so what I like to do, honestly, you want to put it behind a really big beater or a unit that's going to become big. And so Riptide is actually a really good candidate. So that way when you do your 5 attacks over here, 2 Vanguard and 3 Fuevos, you can actually have 2 more attacks with the Riptide, essentially. And so if you didn't get any triggers, let's say you already did your restands and all that kind of stuff, and you're at this point where you attack, if it's just 32K, boosted with the 7, it's a 39K column, then you can Counterblast, Soul Blast, restand in -5, and then it'll attack for 27K. And 27K is still a good number, especially if it's an Excel or Protect clan. They're 12K base, so if they got a trigger, it could still hit, and it does better numbers that way. With the Force clan, it's a less 5K shield they have to worry about. But essentially, you get a beater that you can abuse, and if you have triggers on it, it just becomes really nutty, essentially. And you can do the same thing with Coral Assault, too. The only thing is that it's a little weaker than the Riptide, but I like the synergy, too, because Orfeo has to boost to do the skill. So when it actually boosts Coral Assault can get the plus 15, restand it -5 again, and then when it attacks, it'll get the 15K again. So you get to get the benefit of that. And then, of course, since you're past the 4th battle, it goes into Soul and you draw a card. So it helps with that regard. And then, like I said, with Calm Assault, you can Soul Blast to make the Fuevos attacks even better. So if you really have, like, I guess you can say an ultimate attack turn, a good final turn, is really having 3 Counterblasts, having the Calm Assault and the Penguin as boosters in their recording orders and stuff like that. So you can make really best use of this column, and at the same time make use best of this column, and then the Vanguard attacks twice. Like, that's really solid. And so it's one of the very solid plays for the Tetra. Just a worth note, you could actually do a very similar turn with Alexandros. So if you ran out of, like, for example, if you already went through your Tetra boils and it just makes sense to do the Alexandros play, you could still do this play, and Alexandros will give like massive power up to this column, so you can abuse it. And then, of course, you still fall back on your Riptide, and then, of course, the Orfeo to restand it. And so it's just really good as well. So with the Alexandros, but probably 9 times out of 10, you're going to do Tetra Boil at that point. I just wanted to point that out, though. And now to wrap up the combo video, why not do a Flood Hazard turn? Flood Hazard is a really good stride. So I'm going to demonstrate a turn. Just to preface, it requires a lot more commitment to actually get it really effective compared to a Tetra Boil and even an Alexandros turns. So this may not come up as often, especially if you're playing the Anger Boil. It just seems better to do the Tetra Boil at that point. But I wanted to show this off too, that you can still do this turn. And the reason that you want to do a Flood Hazard turn still is because you get quad check once you're a GB3. So your first drive check, you see 4, right? Or your first attack, you see 4 drive checks. So you can put them all on Fuevos. More than likely, you are going to get triggers at that point. And then it also gives power up to Blue Waves in the front unit with an additional 2K. And it actually makes numbers. And so I kind of explain with that. And then, of course, it'll restand to do another drive check. And again, if you have another unit after that attack to get the benefit of that drive check, then it's even better at that point, really. And so, oh, one more thing. A cool thing that you can do if you are limited in Counterblasts, as you can see the field, you would need 2 Counterblasts to do this turn, but you could also do it with 1 Counterblast. And the reason I say that is the timing for Flood Hazard, because he has to see a blue wave unit just attack on the 4th battle, and at the end of the battle of that, you counter blast, and so you actually pay the cost at the end of that battle. And so you can retire the penguin and actually counter charge. So you could actually do this turn with 1 counter blast, which is really cool. If you don't have an Excel circle, you're going to have to use a card with Wheel Assault as well to kind of help actually get that other rear guard to happen. Unless you have something that is a restandard like a Diamantes or a Tidal Assault on the other column as well. So in this example, I'm just going to have a Calm Assault and a Wheel Assault in this column with a Riptide right here. It could be a Coral Assault as well, but Riptide's Riptide. Essentially, right? So now, during your main phase, you want to do the Penguin skill. So you give +5 to the Fuebos. And now you can actually start your battle phase. And so your first attack will be the left column. Wheel Assault boosting the Calm Assault, so that's a 16k attack. Then you do the Wheel Assault skill, so you could actually swap the two. Now you have a Riptide just chilling right here. And so for the second attack, you're going to do the Vanguard. So again, if you're GB3, you're going to have the quad check, so all triggers put it on Fuebos, right? And so when Fuebos attacks for the third, you can use Calm Assault skill, Soul Blast 1, +5 it, restand. And the one thing I will note, the numbers actually add up in a good way. So +5 from the Penguin, +5 from the Calm Assault, and he's 11k. Again, he's 21k. And then thanks to the GB3 skill, it gets an additional 2k. So the 21k becomes a 23k. Again, beautiful numbers. Especially against Force Clans too. And so after your 4th attack, and he doesn't have to attack the Vanguard, Flood Hazard is very flexible in that. So if you can't hit the Vanguard for whatever reason, you can attack the rear guard, while Anger Boil and Tetra Boil do specify the rear guard to attack Vanguard. That's another slight difference I wanted to point out. And so then you do the Counter Blast and discard 2 to restand. And now you're stood up at this point. And then of course, you do for the 5th, you attack, you get 1 drive check, put that on Riptide if you have it, and then Riptide for the kill. So that is a solid Flood Hazard turn with the new V-Series cards. As you can see, we've actually used 4 of them right now. So this L shape essentially, and we have Fuebos and of course Flood Hazard to utilize in this turn. So yeah, just a couple of things to mention. Again, if you are low on counterblasts, you can use Tidal Assault in those Anger Boil turns to help with that. If you need another restander, you can play the Diamantes, so that's another option too. The only problem is that he discards, so you are minusing, so there's that. And then of course, what I'm messing with is the Brutal Trooper and the Brave Shooter. So Brutal Trooper is really good to gain advantage. For every Brutal for every Brutal Trooper that you have and use it on a restanding Vanguard turn, you actually +1. So if you have 2 of these and you put them in the deck, you're going to +2 that turn just because of this guy. And it's a crit that goes back to deck, so you're more likely to check it again. And then this guy, he's generic. Thawas had access to Petros, but Blue Wave didn't. But now since we have the generic ones that, you know, Vanguard attacks go into Soul, get +10, your Vanguard attack becomes a little bit bigger too, which is threatening. It is per battle, so it's not the end of the turn, so you won't get the benefit for 2 attacks. It's only for 1 attack. And it can be very useful just to make attacks matter, because sometimes you just need another card to do the 4th battle. So if, like for example, you didn't have like another card or something, and you call this with the Wheel Assault, this would hit 12k, and then you could just replace it with another unit that can be replaced here, like a Riptide. And then when your Vanguard attacks, that guy will be scooped up, and you draw a card, and then you do your drive checks and all that stuff. So that's some plays that you can do now because we have access to this kind of trigger. So that's really nice. So once again, amigos, this is Blue Wave Premium right now. Again, this is before Team Dragon's Vanity, the new set that's coming out with Last Card Revan, and then of course the new Blue Wave retrains. You know, we've seen the episode, but we don't know the official skills with their cost and all that stuff. So I'm hoping that they're gonna be very synergetic with the premium build, so that way we can actually play Blue Wave in premium and actually be good and be competitive. Really excited for that. Blue Wave has honestly had a place in my heart, so I'm definitely looking forward to see the V-Series retrain of it. And of course, eventually we'll see Thawas. So I'll be happy when Thawas comes out too. So I thought I'd share this for now just to show you that what we have available now already works with Blue Wave, and it's only going to get better. All right, guys? So leave a like, comment down below, share, and subscribe. See you, amigos. Signing out. Bye.